Shiragiku is a fascinating character, and undoubtedly one of the most visually striking from Fatal Frame 5. For many, she was one of the first to stand out, and throughout the game she certainly makes an impression as well. But who is Shiragiku, and how did the character come about? She has an equally fascinating history, so let's dive in and take a look. Shiragiku's name literally means white chrysanthemum in Japanese. This is of course a subtle reference to her white hair and pale skin, while the chrysanthemum is one of the most prized flowers in all of Japan, the symbol of both the imperial household and also of autumn, the season where nature begins to change, to slow down in preparation of the cold winter months. She doesn't just have white hair, however, and is the first and so far only albino character to ever show up in the Fatal Frame series. That's not exactly where her name comes from, however. Shibata revealed that Shiragiku is the only ghost in the game who was actually based on a real ghost he once saw. While he was working on Fatal Frame 3, he came home late one night to find a girl sitting on a bookcase in the corner of his room. She looked roughly 15 years old, wearing a light green dress with long black hair. Yet her face seemed wiser than her years, more worn down, as though she sure had seen some things and was basically fed up with it all. "You found me," she said, and then looked up at Shibata. She seemed to stare right into his soul, and then she uttered one more thing before vanishing. "Die more slowly." Naturally, this shook Shibata at the time, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized that perhaps the girl wasn't being vindictive and actually telling him to die. This was a rough period of his life where Shibata was actually thinking of ending things, and he realized that what the spirit was trying to tell him was actually to slow down, live his life. We all have to die at some point, but he was rushing headfirst into death, and that was a mistake. He should slow down and try to enjoy life first. Die more slowly. Live life now, because we're all going to die later on anyway. Shibata kept this experience in his mind, and when Fatal Frame 5 came around, he decided to base a ghost around her. Someone who was young, and yet seemed wise beyond her years. Someone who had apparently been around a long, long time, and was fed up with existence, whatever that means for a spirit, and seemed cold, yet also mature. He actually based Miyu's physical appearance on this ghost, while taking her personality for Shiragiku, essentially splitting her in two for the game. Even the line, "You found me," was used as is in the game when you stumble across Shiragiku's spirit. So then, where did Shiragiku get her name and appearance? When first coming up with the character, Shibata envisioned a ghost much like the girl in the short story Shiragiku, written by Yumeno Kyusaku in 1933. It's a now classic tale where a man flees into a large house, and there he finds a beautiful girl asleep, surrounded by dolls. This visual image was so striking that Shibata wished to replicate it, and it matched perfectly with the young girl in the Shrine of Dolls. So, throughout development, she was given the temporary name Shiragiku, just like the short story. Yet the developers ended up loving the name, and so it stuck. And Shiragiku's physical appearance was then changed to match that of her name as well. Meaning, the character was initially born of a real experience Shibata claimed to have in 2005. Influenced by a classic short story that matched the game's storyline for her, and then her physical appearance finally changed to match that same name that stuck. A long and ever collaborative process. And what of her storyline? Shiragiku actually grew up on Mount Kagiroi, another mountain not too far from Mount Hikami, where the game is set. There, Shrine maidens were generally children because of the belief that children under the age of 7 were closer to the gods than those over the age of 7. This is a real belief that used to exist because of how common it was for children to die in ancient times, be it sickness or whatever. There's even a saying for it. Until the age of 7, children are in the hands of the gods. Surveys conducted towards the end of the Edo period revealed that around 20% of children died before they even reached the age of 2, and many still after that as well. So the thought was that they were simply returning to the gods. With that in mind, the Mount Kagiroi religion took it a step further and made sure that their shrine maidens were, for the most part, under the age of 7. This was important because this made them closer to the gods than other people, making them stronger than other shrine maiden candidates. Once they reached 7, they became human, and therefore less powerful. Yet, they were still connected to the Mount Hikami religion, so every now and then they'd send a shrine maiden over to become a pillar, and Shiragiku was one of those shrine maidens. People feared young Shiragiku because of her appearance, being born with white hair, pale skin, and red eyes, and those around her feared that she would also die before she reached 7. As such, she was prepared to be a pillar from a young age, and like the other shrine maidens on Mount Hikami, she too was easily able to read people simply by looking at them, a power only the strongest shrine maidens possessed. Before she was sent to Mount Hikami, Shiragiku met a young Kunihiko Aso, aka the later Dr. Aso. They became friends and played together a lot, growing quite close during their time together. Kunihiko was the only person who didn't run from Shiragiku in terror, a seeming luxury she had never experienced before. At some point, she also had a terrifying brush with death, and she attributed her survival to the young boy she had befriended and fallen for. Shiragiku was fully aware that she was to become a pillar, and that meant that she would technically not die, but rather live on forever, all alone. When she heard of the ghost marriage ritual, however, she determined that Kunihiko would be her husband. In contrast to Mount Hikami, where it was the man who chose a shrine maiden to marry, Mount Kagiroi allowed the shrine maidens to choose their husbands, and so she picked Kunihiko. Therefore, before the ceremony, she had him cut a lock of her hair to act as a token, and with this, he would be able to find his way back to her, and her to him. They said their goodbyes, and Shiragiku entered the black box, full of black water. Of course, she did not die here, not in the way we think of death anyway. She became a pillar, using her great powers to help soothe Mount Hikami and keep the black waters at bay. Inside the box, she waited and waited and waited for Kunihiko to return to her, but he never did. For his part, Kunihiko simply grew up and forgot about what happened at Mount Kagiroi that day, coming to believe that it was perhaps nothing more than a dream. The lock of hair, however, was kept in the family and eventually passed all the way down to Hojo-den, one of Kunihiko's many descendants. But then disaster hit Mount Hikami, and after the black waters escaped and washed over the mountain, destroying almost everything on it, Shiragiku's spirit left her black box and started to roam, much like all the other pillars on the mountain. She picked the Shrine of Dolls in particular, and soon, numerous children in the area were spirited away to play with her and the dolls at the shrine forever. Yet time moved on, and Shiragiku's spirit, naturally, did not age. She grew weary of eternal existence, and more upset that after all this time, Kunihiko still hadn't come for her. She searched for him endlessly, even appearing in the dreams of people nearby trying to find him. The priest who was rebuilding the shrine during the great renovation efforts to revive Mount Hikami noted a young girl with white hair sleeping in a box who appeared in his dreams. Her black box had been placed underground by numerous men bearing flames, and then buried. But the girl inside it seemed to be waiting for someone. Someone who wasn't him. Someone who had something he didn't have. This was, of course, her token of hair, and she hoped that by finding it, she could find Kunihiko again. It wasn't to be, as naturally Dr. Asol grew up, moved on, had a family, and then died, never again returning to Mount Hikami after his brief stint photographing Kurosawa Olse. And so, when Hojo Den, Dr. Asol's descendant, finally showed up at the Shrine of Dolls with her token of hair, she initially mistook him for the good doctor and accused him of breaking their promise. In the last chapter of the game, you're then given a choice. As then, with a little of Dr. Asol's spirit lingering inside him, you can choose to either go to Olse and settle matters with her, or go to Shiragiku and settle matters with her. If you choose Shiragiku, there are again 2 endings to choose from. At first, Den finds her body perfectly preserved in the black water, and the sight shocks him. This upsets Shiragiku, who has been waiting so long for her beloved to return, and so she attacks him. If you don't defeat her, you'll get dragged into the box with her and see a flashback of her times with young Kunihiko. Yet, she quickly realizes that none of this is right, and expels Den from the box with the statement, "Yukkuri shine," or "die more slowly." Sound familiar? If you defeat her, then Shiragiku remarks that she's happy she got to see you, referring to Dr. Asol, one last time, but now you should forget about her. She just wanted to see something beautiful again before it all ended. Then she disappears for good. No endings have ever been confirmed as canon as of yet, so you can choose which one you like the best. And that is the story and history behind Shiragiku, one of the most fascinating and visually striking characters in the series. What did you think of this one? Are there any other characters you'd like to see me cover? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.